about growing up in the mountains is that you learn real quick which places feel wrong. Not dangerous, wrong. Like the land itself is holding its breath, waiting for something. I grew up ignoring that feeling, and I've regretted it every single day since October 2019. My name's Travis, and I used to think I knew these woods. Spent my whole childhood running through the hollers of eastern Kentucky, hunting with my grandfather, setting traps, tracking deer. The Appalachian wilderness was my backyard, or so I believed. What I encountered that autumn proved I never knew these mountains at all. Some things live in the deep places that we're not meant to see, and when you do see them, they don't let you forget. It started normal enough. I was 23, working road construction during the week and helping my grandfather clear trails on weekends. He owned about 40 acres backing up to the Daniel Boone National Forest, land that had been in our family since before the Civil War. The work was simple: chainsaw fallen trees, mark trails, keep the paths clear for hunters. Quiet work, peaceful even. But that September, I started noticing things felt different back in the woods. Nothing I could put my finger on at first, just a feeling. The birds would go quiet in certain spots, like something had spooked them. I'd catch movement in my peripheral vision, but when I'd turn, there'd be nothing there. My grandfather mentioned it too. Said the deer weren't moving through their usual runs. Something's got them stirred up, he told me. Weather change, maybe. Or a bear. It wasn't a bear. The first real sign came on a Thursday afternoon in early October. I was about 2 miles back on the property, near a place we called Shawnee Hollow, a deep cut in the mountain where an old creek ran dry most of the year. I was clearing branches when I heard it. A whistle. Not a bird whistle. Human. 3 notes, high to low, echoing through the trees. I stopped working, looked around. Hello. My voice sounded small in all that silence. The whistle came again. Same 3 notes. Closer this time, maybe 50 yards uphill. I could feel my heartbeat pick up. Nobody should have been back there. The nearest trail was a half-mile away, and this was private land. Posted signs everywhere. You're trespassing, I called out, trying to sound firm. This is private property. Nothing, just whined through the leaves. Then I heard footsteps. Heavy ones, crunching through the underbrush. But wrong somehow. The rhythm was off. Like someone walking on 2 legs, but not quite getting it right. Step drag, step drag, step drag. That's when I saw it between the trees. Just for a second. A shape. Tall, maybe 7 feet. Too thin. It was behind an old oak maybe 40 yards uphill, and I only caught the edge of it. Dark, almost black. But the way it moved made my stomach drop. It swayed, back and forth, like it was watching me, deciding something. I grabbed my chainsaw and backed away. Didn't run. Some instinct told me not to run. I kept my eyes on that tree while I walked backward down the trail, and I swear to God, I could feel it watching me the whole way. When I finally turned and jogged back to my truck, my hands were shaking so bad I could barely get the key in the ignition. I told my grandfather that night. He got quiet, real quiet. Then he asked me exactly where I'd been working. When I told him Shawnee Hollow, he set down his coffee cup and looked at me hard. My daddy told me never to go back there after dark, he said. Said there was something in that hollow that didn't want to be disturbed. I always thought he was just trying to scare me, keep me close to the house. You think it's real? I asked. He didn't answer, just told me to stay away from that section of the property for a while. But I couldn't. I'm not proud of it, but I couldn't let it go. Something about seeing that thing. It got under my skin. I needed to know what it was. I started going back during the day. Always armed, always alert. I'd find strange things. Trees with bark stripped off in spirals. Piles of stones stacked in impossible balance. Once, I found a deer carcass hung upside down from a branch, gutted clean, arranged like some kind of offering. The whistling continued. Sometimes close, sometimes far off. Always those same 3 notes. Then came the night I should have died. It was a Friday in late October. I'd been working late, finishing up a trail section before the weekend. The sun had set about 20 minutes earlier, and the temperature was dropping fast. I was packing up my gear when I heard it. That whistle, right behind me. I spun around. Nothing there. Just trees and shadows, and the last blue light of dusk bleeding through the canopy. My breath came out in clouds. I realized how quiet it had gotten. No insects. No wind. Nothing. Then I heard the footsteps. Step drag. Step drag. Coming from the direction of Shawnee Hollow. I grabbed my flashlight and turned it on, sweeping the beam across the darkening forest. Two eyes reflected back at me, too high off the ground, maybe 6.5 feet up. Yellow-white, like a cat's eyes, but huge, and they weren't moving, just staring. Every muscle in my body locked up. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The eyes blinked, both at the same time, slow and deliberate. Then I heard it breathe. A wet, rattling sound that made my skin crawl. It stepped forward into the edge of my flashlight beam, and I finally saw it clearly. It looked almost human. Almost. The proportions were wrong. Arms too long, hanging down past its knees. Legs bent backward at the knee joint, like a bird's. Its skin was dark, not black, but a deep grayish brown, stretched tight over its bones. And its face. God, its face. Elongated, like a skull that had been pulled forward, with a mouthful of teeth too big for the jaw. But the worst part was that it smiled at me. Actually smiled, like it knew I was terrified and it enjoyed it. I ran. I don't remember making the decision. My body just moved. I dropped everything and ran down that trail as fast as I could, my flashlight beam bouncing wildly, branches whipping my face. Behind me, I could hear it following. Not running, just walking. Step drag, step drag, step drag. But it was keeping pace with me somehow, staying just close enough that I could hear it breathing. That wet rattling sound. I could see my truck ahead, maybe 100 yards. My lungs were burning. My legs felt like rubber. The footsteps behind me were getting closer. I could smell it now. Something like old meat and wet earth. 50 yards. I heard it whistle again, right behind me, right behind my head. 20 yards. A hand, if you could call it that, brushed against my shoulder. Long fingers. Cold. I screamed and pushed myself harder, faster than I had ever run in my life. I reached the truck, fumbled with the door, threw myself inside, and slammed it shut. I jammed the key in the ignition with shaking hands, and the engine roared to life. In the headlights, I saw it standing at the edge of the clearing, just standing there, watching, its head tilted to one side like it was curious. I threw the truck in reverse and got the hell out of there. I didn't go back to that property for 3 months. My grandfather understood. He'd seen the look in my eyes. When I finally did return, it was broad daylight, and I wasn't alone, but the feeling in Shawnee Hollow hadn't changed. That sense of being watched, of something waiting. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear those 3 notes in my head, high to low, a whistle that shouldn't exist. And I wonder if it's still there, back in that hollow, waiting for someone else to wander too far into the deep places. The mountains are old, older than we can understand, and they keep their secrets. I just wish I'd never learned one of them, because now I know what's watching from the darkness between the trees, and knowing is so much worse than wondering. There's some family stories you hear growing up that you assume are exaggerated. Tall tales meant to keep kids in line, you know? Don't wander off. Don't go into the woods alone. Don't mess with things you don't understand. I'm here to tell you that sometimes those stories are warnings, and when you ignore them, you pay a price that never stops collecting. My name's Rachel, and in the summer of 2021, I learned why my family stopped going to our old hunting cabin in the West Virginia mountains. The hard way. I just finished my junior year of college and wanted to get away from everything. Social media, people noise. My grandmother had mentioned the cabin once, years ago. Said it had been in the family since the 1940s, up on Deadfall Ridge, but nobody had used it in decades. When I asked why, she got this look on her face. Sad, maybe scared. Place isn't right anymore, was all she'd say. That should have been enough. But I was 21 and thought I knew better. I convinced my cousin Tyler to come with me. We'd hike up, spend a long weekend, disconnect from the world. It would be an adventure. We parked at an old fire road about 3 miles from the cabin and hiked in on a Thursday afternoon in June. The forest was beautiful at first, thick rhododendron, mountain laurel in bloom, birdsong everywhere. But as we got closer to Deadfall Ridge, things changed. The vegetation thinned out. The trees looked sick, bark peeling, branches bare even in summer. And the smell, like something rotting but sweet, made my stomach turn. Tyler noticed it too. Maybe we should head back, he said. This place feels off. But I could see the cabin through the trees. Small, old logs darkened with age, moss growing on the roof. We come all this way. Let's at least check it out, I said. The cabin was worse up close. The door hung crooked on rusty hinges. Windows thick with grime and spider webs. Inside was dark and musty, full of old furniture covered in dust. But it was shelter, and we'd brought sleeping bags, food, camping gear. We could make it work for a few days. That first night was quiet. Too quiet. No insects, no animals, nothing. Just silence, so complete it pressed against my eardrums. I barely slept. Kept waking up feeling like someone was standing over me. But when I'd opened my eyes, there was nothing but darkness and Tyler's snoring from across the room. The next morning, Tyler found the scratches on the door. Deep gouges in the wood, like something with claws had tried to get in. Fresh ones. The wood underneath was pale, newly exposed. "Rachel," he said, his voice tight. "We need to leave. Now." I agreed. We started packing up, moving fast. That's when I found the journal. It was under one of the old chairs, leather-bound and water-stained. I opened it to the first page. My great-uncle's name, Edmund, dated 1962. I knew he died young, some kind of accident in the mountains, but I'd never heard the details. I read the first entry while Tyler packed. Edmund wrote about coming to the cabin for a hunting trip, described hearing strange sounds at night, seeing something moving through the trees, something that walked on 2 legs, but wasn't human. He mentioned finding dead animals arranged in circles, wrote about dreams of being watched, hunted. The last entry was one sentence. "It knows I'm here, and it's coming tonight." "Rachel," Tyler shouted from outside. "Get out here." I dropped the journal and ran out. Tyler was staring into the woods, his face pale. I saw someone, or something. It was standing between those trees, just watching us. What did it look like? I don't know. Tall. Wrong. It moved behind a tree before I could really see. We didn't discuss it. We grabbed our packs and started hiking back the way we came. But within 20 minutes, I realized something was wrong. The trail didn't look right. The landmarks we passed on the way in were gone. We should have reached the fire road already. Are we lost? I asked. Tyler checked his compass, swore under his breath. This doesn't make sense. We're heading north. We should be going east. We adjusted course, walked for another hour, but we kept ending up at the same place. A small clearing with a dead tree in the center, its branches twisted into shapes that looked almost like hands reaching up. The sun was getting lower. Panic crept into my chest. "We're going in circles," Tyler said. He was trying to stay calm, but I could hear the fear in his voice. That's when we heard the footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, moving through the brush toward us. We couldn't see what was making them, but they were close. Getting closer. "Run," Tyler whispered. We ran. No direction, just away from that sound. Tree branches tore at my clothes, my face. I could hear my breath coming in gasps, my heart hammering. Behind us, The footsteps continued. Not running, just walking, but somehow keeping pace. We burst into another clearing, and I stopped so fast I almost fell. The cabin. We were back at the cabin. We'd run in a complete circle somehow. Inside, Tyler said, "We can barricade the door." We scrambled into the cabin and slammed the door shut, shoving the old furniture against it. Tyler found a hammer in a rusted toolbox and wedged it under the handle. We were breathing hard, covered in sweat despite the evening chill. Then we heard it, a scraping sound against the outside wall. Slow, methodical, like something dragging claws across the logs, testing them, looking for a weak point. "What the hell is that?" Tyler's voice was shaking. The scraping moved around the cabin, to the window, through the grimy glass. I could make out a shape, tall, hunched, watching us. Then it spoke. Not words, just sounds, but they were formed like language, syllables that made my brain hurt trying to process them, like someone who'd learned to mimic human speech, but didn't understand what it meant. The shape moved away from the window. The scraping stopped. For a moment, there was silence. Then the door shuddered. Something had hit it from outside. Hard. The furniture we'd piled against it shifted. Another impact. The old wood cracked. I could see the door bowing inward. The window. I screamed. "We have to go out the back window." Tyler smashed the window with the hammer while I grabbed our packs. The door cracked again, and I could see something through the gap. A hand. Long fingers. Too many joints. Skin that looked like bark. I dove through the window after Tyler, cutting my arm on broken glass. We ran into the woods as the sound of splintering would echo behind us. No trail this time. Just pure terror-fueled flight through the darkness. I don't know how long we ran. Time stopped meaning anything. All I knew was the sound of branches breaking behind us. That wet breathing getting closer. My lungs burned. My legs were numb. Tyler was pulling me forward, shouting something I couldn't understand over the sound of blood rushing in my ears. Then I saw lights. Flashlights. Voices calling our names. We crashed out of the tree line onto the fire road. A search party. My grandmother had called the rangers when we didn't check in. There were 5 people with flashlights, 2 rangers with radios. We collapsed. Tyler was crying. I think I was too. When I looked back at the forest, I saw it standing just inside the tree line. Tall, perfectly still, watching. Then it stepped backward into the shadows and vanished. The rangers found our car right where we'd left it, less than a quarter mile from where we emerged. We'd been missing for 2 days, though it had only felt like hours. They searched for the cabin based on our description, but found nothing. No structure, no clearing, just forest. My grandmother came to the hospital. She sat by my bed and held my hand, and I told her everything. She didn't look surprised, just sad, tired. Deadfall Ridge has been like that for as long as anyone can remember, she said. Some places in these mountains don't want us there. They'll let you in, but they won't let you leave. Not unchanged. What was it? I asked. What was chasing us? She shook her head. Some things don't have names. Don't need them. They're older than names. Older than us. The Cherokee who lived here before. They had stories about the ridge. About a spirit that guards the deep places. Punishes those who disrespect the old ways. I have nightmares most nights now. I wake up feeling like I'm back in that cabin. Hearing the scraping against the walls. Sometimes I hear those sounds, that inhuman attempt at speech, in the quiet moments. And sometimes, when I'm alone, I catch movement in my peripheral vision. Something tall, watching, waiting, because part of me never left Deadfall Ridge. I think it kept something, a piece of me that it won't give back. The mountains remember, and now so do I. You ever had one of those moments where everything you thought you knew about the world just shatters? Where reality tilts sideways, and you realize how small and fragile you really are? I had that moment on a freezing November night in 2020, deep in the Tennessee mountains, and it changed me in ways I'm still trying to understand. The name's Ethan. I'm a wildlife photographer, or at least I was. Haven't picked up my camera since that night. Can't bring myself to go back into the woods. My therapist says I have PTSD. Maybe she's right, but PTSD doesn't explain what I saw. Doesn't explain the evidence I have locked in a safe deposit box that I'm too afraid to look at. I've been working on a project documenting Appalachian black bears. November is when they're preparing for winter, and I'd gotten a tip from a local guide about a spot called Graveyard Hollow, named that because of all the old unmarked graves scattered through the area, dating back to the 1800s. The guide, an older man named Hank, warned me to stay out of the hollow after dark. Why? I'd asked, laughing it off as local superstition. Because things happen there at night, he'd said, completely serious. Things that can't be explained. You go in during the day, get your pictures, and you get out before sunset. You understand me? I nodded, but I didn't really take him seriously. I'd spent years in wilderness areas, been charged by elk, treed by a mountain lion, survived a night in sub-zero temperatures. I thought I'd seen it all. I was wrong. I hiked into Graveyard Hollow around 3 in the afternoon, giving myself plenty of time before dark. The place was beautiful in a melancholy way. Old-growth forest, massive oaks and hemlocks, a creek running through the bottom of the valley. And everywhere, scattered among the trees, were the graves. Some had markers, crude stones with names worn smooth by time. Others were just depressions in the earth, rectangles of sunken ground, marked by nothing but memory. I found bear signs almost immediately. Claw marks on trees, scat, tracks in the soft earth near the creek. I set up my camera gear and settled in to wait, positioning myself near a large oak tree with a good view of the valley. The afternoon passed quietly. I got some decent shots of a female bear and 2 cubs foraging. The light was starting to fade when I checked my watch. 4:30. Sunset was at 5:15. I had time, but I should start packing up. That's when I noticed the silence. The forest had gone completely quiet. No birds, no wind. Even the creek seemed muted. I felt the temperature drop, sudden and sharp, like someone had opened a freezer door. Then I heard the first scream. It was distant, maybe half a mile away, echoing through the hollow. High-pitched, agonized, almost human, but not quite. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. I'd heard screams before, foxes, rabbits caught by predators, mountain lions. This wasn't any of those. The scream came again. Closer, maybe a quarter mile now. I started packing my gear faster, my hands fumbling with the tripod. I didn't know what was making that sound, but every instinct in my body was screaming at me to leave. Now, I got the camera packed and started down the trail toward the trailhead. The forest around me had grown dark, shadows pooling between the trees. I turned on my headlamp, and the beam seemed pitifully small against all that darkness. The scream echoed again. Very close now, just uphill for me. I walked faster, my heart pounding. I could see my breath in the cold air, white clouds in the beam of my headlamp. That's when I saw the first grave. It was right next to the trail, a sunken rectangle of earth with no marker. And it was open, not crumbled with age, freshly opened. Dirt piled beside it, as if something had dug its way out from inside. I stopped, stared. My brain refused to process what I was seeing. This wasn't possible. Graves don't just open themselves. Another scream, behind me this time. I spun around, my headlamp beam cutting through the darkness. Nothing, just trees and shadows and the gaping mouth of that empty grave. I ran. My backpack bounced against my spine, camera gear rattling. I didn't care. I just needed to get out of that hollow. The trail wound between the trees, past more graves, and I saw that several of them were open now. Dark holes in the earth, dirt scattered around them like something had clawed its way to the surface. I heard footsteps behind me, running, multiple sets. The sound of branches breaking, heavy breathing, but not human breathing. Something else. Something wrong. My headlamp died, just winked out, plunging me into absolute darkness. I fumbled for my backup flashlight, dropped it, heard it clatter away into the leaves. Panic seized my chest like a vice. Then I heard breathing right next to me, close enough to touch. That wet, rattling sound. I could smell it, rotten earth and something chemical that burned my sinuses. I bolted blindly into the darkness, hands outstretched, crashing through brush. Tree branches whipped my face. I tripped over roots, fell hard, scrambled back to my feet. Behind me, I could hear them. Multiple things, moving through the forest, surrounding me. A hand grabbed my ankle. Cold, too strong. I screamed and kicked, connected with something solid. The grip released, and I ran harder, faster, my lungs burning, chest heaving. I saw a light ahead, faint, distant. I ran toward it, praying it was the trailhead, the parking area, anything. The footsteps behind me were getting closer. I could hear them breathing, could feel them right behind me. The light got brighter. I burst out of the tree line and fell to my knees in the parking lot. My truck was there, 20 feet away. I ran to it, got the door open, threw myself inside and locked the doors. In the rearview mirror, I saw them standing at the edge of the forest. 3 of them, tall, gaunt. Their skin was pale, almost luminescent in the darkness. They looked like people. If people had been dead for 100 years and then decided to stand up and walk around. Sunken eyes, mouths hanging open, clothes rotted to rags. They just stood there, watching, not moving, their heads tilted in unison, like they were studying me, trying to understand what I was. I started the truck and got out of there, tires spitting gravel. I drove for 2 hours straight. Didn't stop until I reached Knoxville, checked into a motel, and locked myself in the bathroom with all the lights on. When I finally worked up the courage to check my camera, I found I'd been taking time-lapse shots all afternoon. The camera had kept recording even after I'd packed up the tripod. When I reviewed the images, my blood went cold. The graves, in the time-lapse, you could see them opening, dirt moving, shifting. And then, in the last few frames before the camera battery died, you could see figures emerging, pulling themselves out of the earth, standing up, turning toward where I'd been standing. I've shown the photos to experts, geologists, archaeologists, paranormal investigators. Nobody can explain them. Nobody wants to try. The local sheriff in the area near Graveyard Hollow told me to delete them and never go back. Said that hollow has been trouble for 200 years. Said people who go in after dark don't always come out, and those who do come out changed. I've tried to convince myself it was hallucination, carbon monoxide poisoning, mass hysteria. But I have the photos. I have the scars on my face from the branches. I have the memories, crystal clear, of that cold hand grabbing my ankle. And sometimes, late at night, I hear that scream. That impossible, agonizing sound that's almost human, but not quite. I hear it in my dreams. I hear it when I'm alone. I heard it last week standing in line at the grocery store, and I had a panic attack so bad they called an ambulance. Hank, the guide who warned me, died 3 months after my trip. Heart attack, they said, but his daughter told me he'd been having nightmares, seeing things at night, hearing voices calling him back to the hollow. I don't know what those things were. Dead people who won't stay dead? Something that wears the shape of what we bury. Spirits? Demons? I don't have answers. All I know is that there are places in these mountains where the boundary between our world and whatever lies beneath it is thin. Graveyard Hollow is one of those places. The Cherokee have a saying, some ground is sacred, and some ground is cursed, but all ground remembers. Graveyard Hollow remembers, and it doesn't forgive trespassing. I haven't been back to the mountains since. Can't even drive through them without my hands shaking. My photography career is over. I work in IT now in the city, surrounded by concrete and streetlights and noise. Safe, but sometimes I still feel them watching. Those pale figures standing at the edge of the darkness, waiting, patient, because I think part of me is still there, in that hollow, running through the dark. And I wonder if maybe, just maybe, they kept something when they let me go. The thing about Graveyard Hollow is that once it knows you're there, it never really lets you leave.